Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. And in today's episode, we get the opportunity to interview Ryan Patrick. Ryan Patrick is an independent baseball player and also a businessman. In our conversation today, we talk a lot about how baseball transitions into business and also the mindset it takes to be a successful professional that he learned from the game of baseball. We go into some details around business, around sports complexes, and how big the youth sports industry really is. So without further ado, let's dive. Hello and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast. Ryan, I'm excited for our conversation today. You're the first person from the rival McKinleyville High School, so a little Arcata High McKinleyville rivalry. Welcome to the show.
Hey, go Panthers, baby. Didn't have too much luck in the Tiger Den, but oh well.
All right. So for those that are listening, Arcata High and McKinleyville High are our rival high schools, and Ryan went to a rival high school. But, so let's dive in. Ryan had a much more successful longevity of his baseball career than I did. And I'd love to, kind of talk about the impact that baseball had on you in your, your kind of younger life, and then in your youth, so to speak. And then we'll kind of dive into, the playing collegiately and independent ball.
Yeah. I think the transition period in sports probably happened later on in my career versus earlier on. I'd say that, probably sophomore year of college, going in, leaving College of the Redwoods, developed a knuckleball, that creative side to be able to keep me in the game, playing the game. I mean, you're in the Redwood curtain, getting by with, 70 to 75 miles an hour once you leave, that high school, curtain area of talent. You're getting lit up left and right. You go to the Marin Catholics of the world. You go, to bigger schools. You got to be able to make an adjustment. And I think that, for a good part of my career where, beyond Little League, beyond Babe Ruth, I wasn't making an adjustment and was paying for it. And ultimately that adjustment later on, getting more creative with what I have to offer. It's all about the offerings that you can bring to somebody, and you got to be able to stand out in that knuckleball. What was a big deciding factor, and what ultimately landed me a little bit of a scholarship to the University of Sioux Falls, and then some professional baseball time. Still, free agent right now. Ryan Patrick is not retired from the game of baseball. PSA. So all you agents out there, if you guys are looking for a right-handed knuckleballer, hit me up.
I love it. That's a great way to start off, and an interesting way, because I know the game so much, right? When you watch MLB, everyone's looking for 95 plus, velo. That's what everyone wants now, and so sometimes we have to look in ourselves in the mirrors as athletes and ask, what can we, like you said, what can we offer for the team as a pitcher? What can I offer? And so you went to sort of the creative side of things and added that knuckleball. And so can you talk about how that knuckleball, gave you the opportunities, right? You said it to get a little deal to go to University of Sioux Falls, play professional baseball. What were those experiences like for you?
Yeah, I learned pretty early on, especially with the knuckleball, that if it doesn't move, it's going to be a bad day at the ballpark. And I mean, they contribute that a lot to, at the day in the office, to where if you're not getting creative, you're not making day-to-day adjustments, pitch by pitch adjustments, it's going to be a bad day at the office, just like the same way it's going to be a bad day at the ballpark. And being able to shift that mindset and be able to mix in some other pitches. I mean, you had mentioned, 95 plus. I was one of those guys that tried to do that. My dad and I, made an investment into Velocity Plus to be able to try and throw harder. So, tried to go down that parallel path that some people are,
right.
And then got to where it was just like, all right, I got nothing to lose. And sometimes those people are the most dangerous, to where I went in, I just started throwing knuckleballs, and it could be anywhere from, 58 to 63 miles an hour. And you have those guys that are throwing 94 to 95, especially at the professional level. I mean, that's a 35 mile an hour, change difference. That's a speed limit, to where I didn't expect that to be, that much of a difference for somebody at the plate. You would think that, a knuckleball or somebody that's throwing, maybe 80 miles an hour as far as a fastball goes, something that's well handled, but you're under that pitcher's window, or the hitter's window, sorry, of adjustment, to where you're seeing 90 to 92 for the first 6 innings, and then you come in, you bring in somebody like myself or a specialty guy, for the next 2 innings, 7/8, and then bridge the gap to the ninth, you almost become, a linchpin. And that's been an important word for me. I would say the last couple of months is linchpin, to where you're an integral part of the day-to-day operations, whether it be in business, whether it be, in your relationship, your marriage, or even on the baseball team. Basically someone, you want to get to a point where someone's like, if you don't show up to the ballpark on any given day, or you're down for some reason and your arms hurts, you want it to be a point where it's noticed that you're gone, rather than your impact should be felt every single day. And if you're able to figure out a way to be that linchpin in an offense, in a baseball team, in a defense, whatever role, then you're going to be, undeniable.
I love that. And I would love for you to kind of explain more about how that linchpin mentality has helped you transition, right, from playing collegiately to playing professionally. And then we'll kind of get into the business side of things next. But, I think it's an interesting point, right? You get, 6 innings of someone throwing gas, right? Throwing 90 plus. Then you get, you coming in, throwing off timing, right? Hitting is timing. Whether, those that are listening know a ton about baseball, but basically, right, it's the same thing in basketball, right? Defense, you want to disrupt the timing, the rhythm of an offense, right? And offense, you want to be in rhythm. And so it's the same thing with pitching, right? You're keeping hitters off balance. And so as your linchpin, your job was just to throw people completely off balance. And so that's one of the things that you were able to help, impact your teams. And how did, becoming a linchpin and collegiately really help you transition professionally to play independent ball?
Yeah, I think it was, forced entry, to where being undeniable, not going to be told no, to where, I didn't have the greatest numbers in college. I mean, didn't really have that greatest numbers at junior college either. And then still from a professional level, still finding the opportunity, keeping not, I'm still knocking on all those doors, making phone calls. But, I probably need to come to a point eventually where, okay, Ryan, we need you to throw up a 2 or a 3, not a 4 or a 5, right? And
Right.
I think it comes to a point where, your the assets that you bring involve you becoming in that offense, to where if you're, or even with the defense, if you're able to provide some level of a resource for a period of time that people remember, or at least to be able to be utilized or serviceable. When say you're up 6 or down 6. I mean, nobody wants to bring in their outfielder to come in and pitch. You see that MLB guys are doing it right now. There's a rule. They said a rule now.
Right.
They said a rule. You got to be at least down by. The game has to at least be in the 8th inning, or you have to be at down by 9 to bring in a
Right.
fielder to where it looks bad. But having a rubber arm, allows you to be more used over a period of time. And it's all about the image that you bring and the assets that you bring, and how you present yourself, and that preparation to presenting yourself on the mound, or in the business office.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And honestly, one of the things, the themes I kind of see running through here is, you said you're not going to be told no, you're knocking on every door. And I think of one thing I think of you is you're the greatest salesperson for yourself, right? You've been able to, like, baseball's been a passion for yourself, and you've been on that, pursuing that journey. And just like you said in here, any agents listening, who knows, there may be one agent listening. Can you talk about what it means to you, the game of baseball, and what it's like to be your greatest salesperson? Because we've had some, people that help athletes with recruiting. But I think the number one thing, right, if you want to pursue anything, you have to be your number one person that believes in yourself, and will be willing to knock on all those doors.
Yeah, whether you're a hitter, whether you're a pitcher, at the beginning of our conversation, I kind of touched on the surface area of luck, and being able to increase your surface area of luck. And whether that's a pitch that you can bring to the table that nobody else is super used to seeing, because everybody's seeing 92 every Friday night, every Saturday afternoon, and bouncing around every once in a while. You throw them a knuckle curve, show them a knuckleball. A small percentage are seeing that, so that increases your surface area of luck a little bit more. Being able to be present in more games, being able to help one more person. It's all about giving back, especially in the bullpen. Working with guys that might have played at a higher level than you, or maybe even at a smaller level than you, or lower level than you, but have the same, maybe if not more, knowledge of the game. The law of reciprocation and receptivity is so important. You always want to say yes to as much stuff. I'm not saying go out and do anything illegal, but always be receptive to others' requests, any potential opportunity. And then, as far as giving, you got to be in that giving mode to not only give knowledge, but lending a hand on the field, off the field, in business. Yeah, it gets to a point where your reservoir of goodwill is overflowing, and it never hurts to have somebody, you know, have an IOU to you, especially whether or not they return the favor or not. And there's so many people that I still need to return the favor to, that I've gotten, advice from, information from, on how to, face a batter with, a guy on second base and third base, and you come out of the bullpen, and, it's like, hey, if someone hits a pop up to left and that third guy from third base is scoring, and everyone's moving, that puts us in that much more of a position to potentially lose the game, but also getting a ground ball, maybe getting that double play and getting you out of an inning. I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers don't lie as much as the conversation piece is, to be able to back up what you're doing, whether it's in the office or on the field, and the connections that you bring to the table too. I think for me, the reason I've gotten where I am, and I mean, that's, people have gotten way farther than I have. I'm just happy to be where I'm at right now. Someone asked me the other day, they said, what's your dream? And I was like, man, I'm living it right now. I never would have thought that independent baseball, would fill my cup the way that it does. But, building a business, taking it on the road, literally being, on the computer, being able to sell it from wherever. And then all of a sudden, this is what happened in 2021, was the first knuckleball pitcher at Northwestern Medicine Field to ever take on the mound at Northwestern Medicine Field. And at that time, they were the single A affiliate for the Diamondbacks. The next year after that, they came into the American Association. And it was 11 o'clock at night, and I'm facing Cody Clemens, Roger Clemens,
Yeah,
oldest son, and I'm picking up my first win of the American Association. And 3 hours before that, had locked in naming rights to a monster truck rally in Lamar, Missouri, town of about
right.
2,000 people. And anytime that there's an event there, 5,000 people come to that event. So it's just, you gotta be so receptive to where, if you're flexible, if you can come in and be that guy, be that starter, be the closer. There's a transition, there's a correlation with who you are as a person in athletics to who you are as a person in business, and that's a perfect example of that.
I love that. That's really an important story for you to share, that talk about, like you say, quote unquote, maybe some people are quote unquote ahead of me, but you're living your dreams,
Yeah,
right? Like, that's number one. That's the most important. I think, not letting the outside noise affect what you really want to do, right? You're still playing baseball, and you're in the business world, brokeraging sports complexes. And I'd love to, kind of dive
yeah,
more into that, and kind of that transition, right? You talked about, your personality is the same in baseball as it is in business. And I'd love for you to, expand more on, what you're doing in this business world, and
yeah.
how, the game of baseball has really helped shape
Yeah,
you.
and then one last thing I wanted to touch on too was,
Yeah.
seeing a lot more guys, because in indie ball, and then even like with the CFL, or especially with the USAFL or whatever XFL that's going on right now, you're not making a ton of money, and a lot of people are relying on off-season jobs to be able to continue their dream in their career. And you're seeing, I mean, I was on Instagram the other day, and I saw 5 dudes that had exceptional seasons the last 3 or 4 years. They were all stars. They shut it down. I don't know if, I didn't ask them, but a lot of time the most common thing is, oh man, had to go get a job, had a kid, gotta support the family. My challenge to those people is create something and develop something that you never have to walk away from. Everybody should be a business owner, especially in indie ball, to the point where it doesn't matter, if you're making $1,200 a month, you're on a rookie minimum. Or, I mean, I think that the league max in some of these leagues is $3,000, $2,000. You should create something that prevents you from having to walk away from that game, because then that's another way of being all in too, to where you don't have to be to the field until 2 or 3 o'clock. That's 3 4 hours of call time you could potentially be doing, to be able to
Right.
manage both, to prevent you from walking away from the game from wherever. And that's been on my heart quite a bit, seeing those guys that have walked away from the game, because of a financial reason, or needing to take care of their family, or they have a mortgage, and figuring out, man, that more and more people, there's so many more millionaires in the world than there were when we were in high school, because
Right.
they're creating jobs. I mean, you could, if you're good at selling something, you have to be good at selling something. You have to sell your assets, your ability to play the game of baseball. Why not exchange that in a business sense and make yourself, that much more flexible, spearhead not only a baseball team and provide those services, but when you're not doing anything, you got a 4-hour bus ride at night. Hop on the email list, send out 150 emails, hit up those Google alerts, hit up construction.com,
Right.
do whatever, and you're gonna I guess what I'm trying to say is there should never be a reason to where you have to walk away from something if you've created something that can support you financially, whether you're supporting your dream financially until you get to that point, kind of like right now. And even I was at that point too, where you're substitute teaching and trying to build that
Right.
income to be able to get to the point where you want to be. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just my.
No, that makes a ton of sense, right? Like if you really want something, this is kind of what I'm hearing. If you really want something, create and design your life around to make it
Yeah,
happen. I think that's something that I'm trying to intentionally do right now. I love podcasting and being able to do this, and I love coaching, right? So therefore, for me, the business is training, right? It's an opportunity to, make a living, being able and make an impact on kids, and so I'll get to do what I love. And so just creating and designing that life that you really want to continue to live.
absolutely. And to answer your question too, kind of on the sports complex front, we got an office in Sioux Falls. Really, the office is wherever we go. I mean, what's nice about the office in South Dakota is that there's no state income tax, to where a lot of it's
Right.
on Zoom. So there are some favorable tax laws, trust laws in the state of South Dakota. But really, we're probably handling about $1 billion worth of construction all across the United States. Canada's not out of the question. But as it relates to sports complexes and my role that I have with them is I'm essentially a third party broker. So for most people who don't know what it is to broker naming rights, think of yourself as a real estate agent. Everyone's becoming a real estate agent right now. You can. It's the same thing while you're supporting your dream right now. Maybe substitute teaching. There's a lot of substitute teachers in Sioux Falls who are also real estate agents because they're trying to
Interesting.
they're trying to build up that book of business, build up that repertoire because it's commission only. It's a fight. It's a dog fight out there trying to separate yourself. Fortunately, in my industry, you're kind of like a real estate agent representing a buyer or a seller, perhaps. Maybe you're representing the buyer that's looking to purchase a home from somebody. In this case, I'm representing the city, which is potentially the seller, and I'm also representing the buyer, which is maybe a bank. Let's say, Redwood Capital Bank. Yeah, they want to
Right.
they want to buy the naming rights to Pearson Park in McKinleyville, and that's
Right.
1,000 a year for 10 years. Well, based off of our business model that we've created, to where again, this is the law of give more in value than you take in payment, because you'll always be taken care of. To where when I mean by that, to where if you want the more money you want to make, you got to give that much more value. A lot of people ask me, okay, Ryan, what's your goal to make the most money possible this year? Well, I got to give 10x more value, and I'm not talking Grant Cardone. I'm just saying you got to give 10x, 20x, whatever. You got to provide the resource before you can, up the price of what you want to do. I mean, that's something that I look at every day on LinkedIn. The 1 minute boost with Jesse Cole, the owner of the Savannah Bananas. He says, "Okay,
Oh yeah.
everybody wanted to know, why weren't we increasing our ticket prices?" And I was like, "Okay, well, we had to get more familiar with the value that we were bringing. Once we were able to increase the value and show, proof of concept of that value." Then we were able to raise the price. But I think right now, with what we're doing as far as our business model goes, I mean, fortunately, there's not, knock on wood, not a lot of competition with that, because it's tough. A lot of people have those 9 to 5 jobs where they they don't have time to go on. They don't have time to go door knocking. As far as you
Yeah.
think of, you go to the Arcata Little League field behind the CHP station. You have the
Right.
banner signs. You see Barnes Drugs has right on the jersey. All that has.
Right.
That's essentially what I'm selling. Outfield signs, jerseys, jersey tops, jersey kits, the physical naming rights to Google alerts, right? You physically have to type in, Arcata High School. If for some reason, if Hiller Sports Complex ever became, the Providence Health Park, well, that's basically what it changes. So that type of name recognition promotion is the industry that I'm in.
Interesting. Okay, name recognition and promotion. Um, so with that, I think one of the things that we talked about, before we hopped on is, kind of the challenge. You said that you're knocking on a lot of doors, right? And so a lot of times that comes with challenges, different people that you're working with, and we talked about kind of the mindset sort of thing. Can you talk about, the mindset that you are starting to adapt now as someone who's hoping to brokerage different things and create more opportunities for yourself and also your
Yeah,
clients?
so I'm in the middle. I'm on day 23 of 75 hard. And
Okay.
I've seen the momentum that I've created from reading 10 pages, listening to guys like Andy Frisella, talk about what it means to be a salesman, what it means to be in a point of time where maybe you're in a rut and the momentum isn't on your side. Every day is an absolute grind to be able to try and get that momentum on your side. It is. You're just riding the wave, and you want to be able to collect, and constantly be after new business, because eventually that momentum is everywhere in life, and everybody feels it, to where when it doesn't last forever, and the opportunity is to be able to take advantage of those small spurts, kind of like in sports. Whether it's the first quarter, whether it's the second inning of a game, it's made up of little moments, and capitalizing on those little moments to get ready for the
Right.
moments add up, to where each day, I break my day off into 2 hour increments. If I can just win, an hour at a time of whatever I'm doing. Maybe it's making cold calls, maybe it's sending out an email list, maybe it's doing my due diligence on a project, maybe it's trying to figure out, okay, whether it's a sports complex in Delaware, maybe that's a saturated market, to where I notice that a certain amount of groups have already given so many of their marketing dollars to a project. It probably wouldn't be wise for me to take that on in a saturated market right now, knowing that all of those community dollars, the bank dollars, people's fiscal years have been, sincerely impacted by the outsourcing of their money to these other projects. Probably want to find a project in another area where it's not as saturated. Maybe it's a sports complex in DeSoto, Texas, because they don't have one, where someone is more likely to be able to give to those dollars because it doesn't pop up every single day. So you get
Right.
a keen idea of casting that wide net out in preparation for the times, for those quiet times where momentum, where you, for the time being, it's okay to maybe feel a little overwhelmed with what's on your plate, because there's going to be another quiet period that comes, to where, we typically sign on with a client for about 12 months, to where you're able to give them a full 12 months, but all those other projects, it depends on where that momentum is within those projects. You could come in on one area, maybe in North Carolina, land a bank, land a healthcare partner, land an insurance partner. It's like everybody wants to be involved there, to where maybe there's something in Oregon and nobody gives a crap about anything, to where it's like, oh, we don't spend $15,000 here. Our effort is in food is medicine, or our financial literacy, learn to earn nights at the school. We don't do sports complexes. So it's aligning
Right.
your vision, and you got to be able to sell, obviously, and be a good extension of your client and what they want as a product, as to what they're selling. Because again, we don't have a mission statement. Our mission is just, we're an extension of your efforts, of what you're looking to achieve. But it's also to talk up every project that we're a part of. And when I say, obviously, Ryan, you're supposed to talk up every project because you're trying to convince people to buy it. But it's also, you want to be on their team, to where anytime I call, I try to put myself in everybody's shoes, to where, if one day I'd like to put my name on a building. Maybe it's Patrick Family Field at McKinleyville High School. All that comes at a
Right.
cost, but you have to be able to find a way and find a unique area, not a pain point, but a reason to share with them as to why they would be lucky to be a sponsor at this complex. What kind, obviously with ROI too. What does that mean for a telecom company to come in and just, okay, if they're going to spend $30,000 a year for 5 years to have their name on it, you would hope that they would get their services too. So I'll use an example here. There's Mid Continent Communications, and you have Vast Broadband. And
Okay.
your Mid Continent Communications isn't going to want to put their name on something if Fast Broadband is getting the services. So it's all about that law of reciprocation, to where if they're going to give you something, you got to give something back in return. But that's different for businesses, rather just than when you're reading and you're trying to figure out how to connect with clients. So when I say give on the other end of that, it's just it's a double-edged sword, because the goal here is whether it's a competitor, whether it's somebody you don't even know, if you don't have the time to do something, but you can be able to, gift them a book of business, that's that reservoir of goodwill you'll always be taken care of, regardless of if that person comes back and offers you something in return. You shouldn't expect anything in return as an individual that's looking to help to like grow your business. But with these sports complexes, I've seen it's like, okay, with people are very judicious in their mind of their sponsorship dollars. So trying to be a good person in business, but also when the business wants that ROI, it's to make everybody happy. So that can be difficult at times.
Right. And I like the mindset of always wanting to give, right? And understanding that that will eventually come around and come back. And I'm just curious, as I kind of, hear you talk, we're getting on the, the technical side of business, and we're all about, kind of transforming leaders on and off the court. I think, it'd be, I'd love to, hear your perspective on the importance of, you know, brokeraging these, kind of different marketing deals to help support youth sports, because right at the end of the day, right, that's what it's all about, is to provide kids more opportunities to play. And so these sponsorships give kids access to complexes, and potentially jerseys, right, hats, and whatever else that they can feel a part of a team. So can you talk about that part of the business side of
Yeah, I
things?
think when you offset the mandatory costs for a project. Every project has some level of a construction cost, from maybe its seed capital to being able to get architectural renderings put together, all the way up to conceptual design and getting it to an operation standpoint to where it
Right.
operates in the black. It's nice to be able to keep the lights on, but it's much nicer to be able to keep the lights on, and how shiny are those lights. The more that groups sponsor, whether it's a grocery store like Safeway, whether it's a hospital, or however you structure these deals, we try to keep a couple of different things in mind. One, how's it going to be able to help the complex, and two, who's using it? Because a lot of these complexes, and this is what I think it will happen probably here in the next half decade. Everybody has a lot of these city municipalities have money, these tax bonds, 30-year bonds of $60 million or $50 million, whatever the money is. They're going to build these complexes, but who is it for? Who gets to use it? Is it just going to lay empty because there's no schedule, there's no proof of plan? So I think you're going to see a lot more private organizations flourish, because they have the athlete base, they have the groups, like Mad River Soccer. The reason that the Hiller Sports Complex or the Arcata Sports Complex does so well is they have that athlete base to come in and support the need and the usage of fields. That's their home field. It's Arcata's home field. To where if they just made that complex, and Arcata didn't have a soccer team, and Humboldt County wasn't known for soccer, and we had football and baseball and soccer, that place would lay empty forever. So
Right.
I think if you're able to identify a project, help them offset the mandatory costs, and beyond that, if there is a group of individuals, if there is a tenant, and that's why it's important to have tenants at these complexes, not only from an operations standpoint, letter of intent to pay to help get the building off the ground, or that's what you see typically a lot with these sports medicine groups. They'll sign an LOI to be able to be like the exclusive sports medicine partner to XYZ Sports Complex. All that money that goes into that complex frees up space, frees up resources, so kids can use that complex for free, whether it's foundations. I mean, typically grants like the Walmart Blue Cross Blue Shield grant is a great resource of this, because a lot of that funding that goes into, they might be giving to a project, but within that grant is a specific resource into that project, whether it's materials, whether it's usage of time, whether it's space. So by going out and getting sponsors, it could be a large corporation that takes the naming rights. I know that we're really relying on those mom and pop insurance stores, those local state farm agencies, to sponsor those jerseys to offset those costs. Because I mean, hotels are expensive. I mean, I looked at it the other day.
Right.
The youth sports tourism industry is officially larger than the NFL. Parents that are as
That's
far as
crazy.
cheerleaders go, these parents are booking hotels 164 days in advance. So they got to foot the bill
That's
164
wild.
days in advance. And if there's not anybody to sponsor their team, their event, whatever, that bake sale that they did, that's coming out of mom and dad's pocket.
Right. That's so fascinating, and I'm honestly curious. Let's say an organization is interested in wanting to, kind of build a sports complex or find a sports complex. Like, what would your advice be for them? If they want to build something, whether it's a basketball gym or a baseball
It
field.
depends how big the organization is. So it's like you look at the Humboldt Wild. They probably got
Yes.
fifth,
Yeah.
sixth,
Yeah.
seventh grade, maybe 100 kids. That's gonna be a lot tougher for them to come in and build their own field house compared to, let's say, a Mad River Youth Soccer League who maybe has 2,000-3,000 kids because they've built something over
Right.
time, and I think that comes with trust. That you get X amount of
Right.
games to where I think it's important if you have a smaller organization to try and team up with maybe a larger organization to put together maybe a multi-use facility, because if you're a smaller organization, you better have a donor. You better have somebody like a Danco, in your back pocket that you're tugging at. Yeah, they're not
Right.
trying to talk about any competitors to Furtado Construction, but what I'm saying here is that you need to be able to use your resources and connect with your city leaders. I mean, there's so many different opportunities as it relates to bonds being issued and getting the right bond issued to where we're not raising property tax. That's the last thing you want to do, is to be able to put that on, a small community, let's say of Blue Lake. They wouldn't be able to support that, a sports complex being built. Whereas if you put it maybe on the casino and or somebody else, as far as the sales tax goes, and this is I want to commend the city of Gretna for doing this, to where the city of Gretna is maybe 5,000 people. Much rather than doing a property tax and putting that weight on 5,000 people,
Right.
they have this place, these outdoor outlets. It's almost like the Dublin outlets in California, called the Gretna
Okay.
outlets. That, I mean, they do millions of dollars every year. And people from Iowa, people from Minnesota. It's a destination between Omaha, which is 600,000 people, and all those people going into Lincoln, Nebraska for Husker football games. The thing to do with a football game is go
Right.
shopping. Imagine if the Bayshore Mall had a sales tax to be able to support a sports complex like that. That's why I think whether it's
Mm.
McKinleyville, whether it's Eureka, would be perfect for this. You're not putting that property tax on the weight of the people that immediately live within those city limits, but everybody else that comes in and uses those.
Right.
So maximizing on those bond dollars to where if the city and the residents knew that that money just wasn't solely on them, yes, a half-cent sales tax increase to be able to give our kids a sports complex, no brainer to me. I mean, you get to a point where you have people that come into town. I mean, you have no choice but go into Eureka to do your shopping. You got to go to Costco. You got to go to the mall, especially where you're coming from, Fortuna,
Right.
the people of Eureka, Arcadum, McKinleyville, Blue Lake, Cuddyback, whatever. And that would be the ultimate way to be able to start bringing in more resources, is by not raising. That's all till I'm blue in the face. Don't ever raise property tax, raise the sales tax, because it falls on other people. That's how you build a sustainable sports complex, essentially, that will at least get you off the ground, get everything constructed, and then all those tenant agreements. Maybe it's with the YMCA or with your local soccer group, or even those sponsorship dollars will take care of the rest.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I kind of, understanding that the nuances and the complexity that it comes to when it comes to building these big sports complexes. And as we enter the ninth inning of our podcast conversation, I'd love for you, to share anything around, what you really would hope for the parents and the coaches, and even maybe some of the athletes that are listening to this, about your journey, specifically going from baseball to business owner. I know we talked a lot about business in the second half of this podcast, but I mean, I feel like there's so much intangibles that you have taken away that really could apply to any profession.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you go to different baseball stadiums, different baseball sports complexes, softball, soccer sports complexes. Growing up as a little kid, you're tied to boundless curiosity and creativity. And I think with being on the field, you're forced to get creative in different circumstances, and that teamwork creates a framework for the type of individual and the business person, whether you're a businessman, businesswoman, it catapults you into your mentality, your tenacity, and your ability to handle rejection. It depends on what industry you're in, and especially if you're going to be told no a lot more being in the sales industry than probably being an accountant. Maybe don't quote me on that, if maybe accountants get told no quite a bit, but I would say that the journey and the trials and tribulations, especially, you got to be part of a losing team eventually. We all have been a part of the team, whether it's the McKinneyville Rec Basketball League and your team doesn't win a freaking game, or you're part of Rich Drilling and you go 25 in the first year, and all of a sudden you're in a position to where you're winning these section championships. You take little bits and pieces. You're not going to take the full piece, but it's going to mold you into an individual. And I think that's why sports are important, because they create that. Everybody's got that dog in them. That's what you laugh at. So you see that TikTok, it's like, oh, dog, James Dog, and it gets you to a point where it's like, yeah, it's like that person just told me no, but it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to his competitor, and he's gonna see his competitor spending money. Just like the same time, it's like, oh, that guy struck me out. Good luck getting me the next time. I still got two more ABs. It's not like, oh, I struck out 2 times already today. It's like, I need 2 at-bats. It's not I get 2 at-bats. Being grateful in the position that you're in. That's also what I want to talk about. I know what Bryce Harper mentioned this, especially when he hit that home run in the World Series, was, man, you must have been under so much pressure. You must have been under so much pressure in that situation. It's like, no, I was grateful to be in that position. So I think once you shift that mindset for how grateful you are in any position that you're given in, it allows you that opportunity to show how successful you can be.
I love that. That's a great way to end our show. And so with that, where can people find and connect with you if they want to, learn more about the sports complex business, about playing independent baseball, or just, they loved your conversation today and they just
hit me up on LinkedIn, Ryan Patrick. Just updated my profile pic. Let me know what you think.
There we go. All right, I'll drop that link in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today, Ryan. I've got a full page of notes. Really
absolutely, brother. Good to see you again. Congrats on all the good work and rooting for you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.